Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. My name is Saimah and welcome to Saimah's Experience. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to buy and sell a car for Turo without taking a loss. And this is going to be based off of a car that I just recently sold. So I'm going to share exactly how I bought it, exactly how I sold it, and how it performed on Turo for the time that I had it. Now, I see a lot of hosts making this mistake where they get into a vehicle and they underestimate how many miles that vehicle is going to accrue during the time that they have it on Turo, and they end up having a bunch of negative equity. So you definitely want to check out my website, powerhost.club, where I have an entire course on exactly how to buy and sell cars, how to manage your cars while they're on Turo so that you can avoid this exact situation. Now, what exactly is negative equity? Negative equity is when the value of your car is lower than what you owe on the car. So if you're financing vehicles and you have a loan on it, then what you owe is higher than what the car can resell for. And that is exactly the thing that you want to avoid. And majority of the times, the reason why people end up in that situation is because either you overpay for a car or you accrue way more miles in a shorter time frame, so it completely brings the value of the car down. And if you don't know exactly how to run your listings on Turo, you will find yourself in that situation because you can easily put a ton of miles on your car and it can lose value. So I will go over exactly what happened to my car because I did experience that, but how I got out of it. So let's look into some of the numbers. Now, I had a 2018 BMW X4. It was an M40i to be exact that I had listed on Turo. It has been by far one of my best performing cars, one that my guests have absolutely loved, and it's had a very high utilization on the platform. So let's talk about how I purchased that car because this is one of the cars that I financed, to be specific. The purchase price of the car was about $46,800. And when I purchased the vehicle, it had about 10,000 miles on it. But the reason why I went for this car is because one of the most important things, and that was it met my specification for what percentage I needed off of the Msrp price. So that's the price that you see on the sticker of that car. This car was 22 to 25% off of MSRP. This is so important. I cannot stress this enough. This is really what you need to look at when you are getting a car for Turo. This is so important because this is primarily how you counteract any potential excessive depreciation that a car might take on because it's listed on Turo and because you're putting on way more miles than as if you were just personally driving that car. So over the years, I have figured out that the sweet spot when getting into a car that you are financing is that you want to make sure you are 22, I would say even 20% is a good number, 20 to 25% off of MSRP, and you are absolutely golden. Now, Turo has a car buying guide on their website, and they suggest about 15% off. But I really think for my 6+ years of doing this and buying countless numbers of cars that the best number to be at is between 20 to 25%, and that's exactly where this car was when I financed it. Now you might be wondering, where did I find a car that is so heavily discounted off of MSRP? The reason why this BMW was about 22% off of MSRP was because it is something called a demo model. So I'm just going to note that right here so that you can look that up. Now, a demo model is basically a car that is owned by the brand. So for example, this car was owned by BMW Financial and it's driven by their executives. And so once they're done having their executives drive that car, maybe they utilize it for testing or feedback, then they place it on the lot and they are ready to sell. They're highly motivated to selling these cars because it is a liability on their books and they want these cars off the lot so that loan can be taken care of. And that is why demo vehicles are a great type of vehicle to buy for the Turo platform. So this is how I got into the car. Now let's talk about how the car did while I had it on Turo. So the day rate on this car is something that I love because it fetched a pretty good day rate throughout the years that I had it on the platform. It was roughly around $121 to $181 per day is what I would typically get on this car depending on the season. Now here's the crazy part. I had this car on Turo for 2.5 years, almost to the day. And in 2.5 years, and this is sort of where I made a mistake, it accumulated an insane 50,000 miles on it in 2.5 years. That is a lot of mileage, even for being in a market where you see high utilization, like here in Southern California. 50,000 miles is excessive, even for me. So I was shocked when I realized how many miles I had put on this car from renting it out. And that's exactly what I'm saying, is that oftentimes new Turo hosts, you underestimate how many miles a car will get on it while it's being rented out on Turo. Now, what happened? Why did this car accumulate so many miles in 2.5 years? Well, there's two main incidents that kind of stick out to me as to why this happened. Number one was I had a renter who actually drove my car to New York, from Southern California to New York, and it was insane. And he did not have the mileage allotment to do that. Of course, I would never allow that because that is crazy. That's like 3,000 miles each way. So that was one incident. Now, another thing is that this car was listed on the Turo platform throughout 2020, which was an insanely rough year for business. So in order to stay alive, one of the things that I decided to do in order to provide value in my listing and really capture any bookings that were out there because it was so dead was to offer unlimited miles, and people did in fact utilize that, but it kept me alive throughout 2020, and it's one of the reasons why I'm still here today. So I had to do that, and that is why I accumulated so many miles on this car in such a short period of time. So it was just insane. So normally, for those of you that are probably naturally wondering, here in Southern California, and from my experience of doing this for 6 years, I've noticed that roughly I accumulate between, I would say, 12 to 15 to 16,000 miles per year on a car. Now that does not go across the board for every state in the US for cars listed on Turo. It really depends on what people are doing in your area. For example, Miami happens to be one of those markets where there is very low mileage accrual on vehicles because people just aren't driving much. They're staying very local, just within the city, just around the beach. And so those cars just don't get that many miles on it. But Southern California is a different area. It's a very driver-friendly area. There's a lot of destinations to go to around here, and people do drive and go. So that's why in this area, I see, on average that 15,000 miles per year. So really, this car should have accumulated close to about 37 to 38,000 miles over the span of 2.5 years, but it was an insane 50,000 miles. So crazy. By the time I sold it, it had just a smidge over 60,000 miles on it, which is really a lot for 2.5 years. And that includes the 10K that it came with. Now, I have this word written here called multiple. And so this is to kind of give you an indication of how my car performed while it was on the Turo platform for 3 years. The reason why I loved this BMW X4 is because no matter what, on average, I almost always did 3 times the car payment, which for me, this is sort of my magic number to where I find that having a car on the Turo platform is really worth it. So having 3 times the car payment is worth my time, it's worth having that car, and I enjoy the margins that I get out of it. So in terms of performance in 2.5 years, this car did great to me. Now let's talk about selling your Turo car. So what we know so far is that it's really important that when you get into a car, you get into it at the right price. And you really want to be, between 20 to 25% off of the MSRP. And let me just stop right here and say, if you're liking this video, be sure to hit that like button. And second to that, We all know that right now that the car market is crazy inflated. And yes, it is very true that you are not going to find this anywhere. But like in all markets, things will normalize. And when they do normalize, now you know, so you want to look for that deal. But are you going to find it right now? Most likely not. That would be like finding a unicorn out there, and it is next to impossible. But this is all temporary. So just give it a little bit of time before you go out looking for this deal, because it's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible right now, but those times will come back. Okay, so now let's get into selling your car. So I went ahead and just recently sold this car because it was right around that 60,000 mile mark. And I wanted to get out of it before it started having maintenance issues, which can be such a big variable. It's out of warranty. I wasn't going to have that protection, and I didn't want to deal with the variable cost of maintenance. And being that it's a BMW, if you have random issues like a water hose going out or, your transmission going out, it can become very, very costly. And I did not want to take up that cost, and I just like to avoid that type of variable cost. So 60,000 miles is sort of my limit to when I want to get out of cars. And of course, given the crazy prices for used cars these days, I wanted to take advantage of this market and fix my mistake of putting so many miles on this car. And so I wanted to get the maximum value for my car, and what better time than right now when prices are sky high for used cars. So it was the perfect time to get out. So I recently sold my car, and I sold it through one of the big online retailers, and pretty much you just want to do a price comparison. They're all essentially the same. So whoever gives you the highest price, go with that route. There's typically Carvana, there's Vroom, there's CarMax, and a few other places. So just shop around and see who's going to give you the highest price. These days, there's also dealerships out there that will bid for your car, so you can sell directly to a dealer as well. Or if you want to get the maximum value, you can often do a private sale. Now, I'm really lazy and I don't want to put the time into dealing with having to sell it privately. So I went through one of the major companies, the company that gave me the highest offer, and I just sold it. They came, they picked it up. It literally took zero time for me, and that's how I like to do it. So that's the way that I went. So again, that's Carvana. I could spell here. Vroom. You can even go to CarMax. The online retailers are endless. So now, how much did I sell this car for at the end of 2.5 years and accumulating over 50,000 miles on the car? I ended up selling it for $28,000. And when I saw that that's the price that I was offered for this car, I was over the moon because it 100% matched what I owed on the loan of this vehicle. So I did not lose any money. I did not have to suffer any negative depreciation, negative equity in the vehicle. And I walked away with just taking all profit for 2.5 years on this vehicle. And it was phenomenal. So in a second here, I'm going to go over 3 things that you can do to prevent yourself from ending up in a situation from taking a loss. But I wanted to break down sort of the 3 main things of buying and selling a car. And I'm going to break down exactly how you can go about figuring out, how you want to calculate what the value of your car is going to be in the future. But first, I wanted to share these numbers with you guys. And again, if you're liking this video, definitely hit that like button and check out my course at powerhost.club. Now let's get into the 3 things that you can do to prevent taking a loss on a car that you have listed on Turo, and how to get out of a car that you have negative equity on. Okay, so one of the first things that you want to do is make sure that you conduct good market research on the vehicle that you're thinking about going into or getting out of. Now, prior to selling my BMW X4, I went on, a very simple website like cars.com, and I did some research on what 2018 BMW X4s were going for so that I could recognize a good offer when I saw it come my way. And these are literally, I will just chart these numbers based off of what I see, and then I'll I'll draw a conclusion based on what I'm seeing. So I want to do some research and find out what are these dealers selling this car for, so I know that when they give me an offer, what I should and shouldn't accept. So for example, a car identical to mine, a 2018 X4 M40i with only 8,000 miles on it, was going for $60,000, which is close to the MSRP price on these cars when they are brand new, which is insane. But if you think about it, the math all really adds up. Now, I got my car for, roughly 22% off of MSRP. I paid about $46,800 for it, and the sticker price was close to about $60,000. So that's right on the money. Now, something with 8,000 miles on it going for 60,000 miles, which is close to sticker price, makes sense because we know in the current market conditions, used car prices are inflated by roughly about 17 to 23%. So that's why these prices are so high, and that's why I got such a great offer. Now, I looked at a high mileage car like the one that I had, a 2018 BMW X4 with 65,000 miles on it, so 5,000 more than what my car had, is going for $39,844. I mean, that is insane, right? They're getting such good rates for it. So basically, I knew that if I got an offer between, let's say a dealer needs to make between $5,000 to $10,000 on a car. So if I got anything in the 10K range of that 39,000, and as long as it added up to what I owed on the car, then I would accept the offer because I simply just want to wash my hands of it and get out of it so I can get into something newer. Now, let's say you're probably wondering to yourself, okay, Saimah, well, I'm thinking about, getting into a 2021 model, something that is newer, or maybe you just got into a 2021. How do you figure out what the value of a car like that is going to be, 2 years down the line when it has 60,000 miles on it, or, 30,000 miles on it, whatever it ends up being after being used on Turo? Well, one of the things that you want to do for that is you want to go look at maybe the same car, but a year older. So for example, I would go and look at if I had a 2021 BMW X4, I would go look at a 2020 BMW X4. So I found one on cars.com, or I found a few that had roughly about 35,000 miles on them, and they were going between $55,000 and $57,000. So that's how you can sort of gauge what the depreciation is going to be once you have miles on it. Now, of course, we are in very unusual times right now, so I have to continue to say that because we are seeing inflated prices. So maybe make an adjustment of 15 to 20% off that price to make up for the inflation that we're seeing right now. And you can also actually, even if you have a 2021, we're in 2021 right now, but we're, a good portion of the way through the year. So you can even find 2021s that are already up for sale. So for example, I found my same car, a 2021 BMW X4, with 25,000 miles on it, going for $63,000. I mean, it is just crazy. So that's the first thing that you want to do, is make sure you go and conduct market research on your car that is selling, so that you more or less know where you're going to need to be based on how much miles you think that you're going to accrue over having that car on the platform for a certain period of time. And the way I like to do it is, when I have cars on Turo, is I like to keep them by mileage and not by year. So once I hit that 60,000 mile mark, that's typically when I like to get out of them before you start really experiencing any problems. So that's the number one thing that you want to do. Now, the number two thing, if you find yourself in a car, and let's say today you go to a site like Edmunds or KBB, and you run the value of your car based on the miles that it has right now. Let's say you find out that you owe $40,000 on that car, but KBB is valuing your car at $30,000. What does that mean? That means what you owe is greater than what the value of the car is. You owe an additional $10,000 versus what the car is actually worth. So what do you do in a situation like this? And I think a lot of people find themselves in this situation. So first, you can figure out what that amount is. And second, what you can do is start taking a greater portion of your profits from Turo and allocating it to the principal of your monthly payment, so that you bring that amount down and you bring that depreciation down. And the third thing that you want to do to avoid taking a loss on a Turo car, because this is the number one thing that causes the loss, is mileage management. This is so, so, so important. Miles is not one of those things that you just sort of leave static all throughout the year. The mileage that you offer for your rentals, the per day minimum, it should really change throughout the year based on the seasons. And this is something that I talk a lot about in my private community and my Turo course, which is available to you at powerhost.club. These are the strategies that we constantly work on so that you can balance out the mileage throughout the year. For example, when it's peak season, there is more than enough demand in the market that you can actually bring your mileage down. Not everyone needs a ton of mileage for their trips. Now in the winter, let's say business slows down and there are not that many people renting and you really want to pine for the business that's out there. Well, then maybe you want to increase your mileage and build more value into your listings. So these are the types of strategies that you can implement to really balance out your mileage so that you don't end up in a situation to where, you put on an additional 13,000 miles on a vehicle like I did. Now, thankfully, the stars aligned for me and I happen to be in a great car resale market to where I got top dollar on that car. Otherwise, I could have found myself in a position to where I would have had negative equity and had to come out of pocket for that vehicle. All right, you guys, on that note, I hope that you guys found this video of value. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. Definitely help me out with the YouTube algorithm. I would so, so appreciate it. I am going to be in the comment section below right after this, and I would love to know how Turo is going for you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, the link to my site, powerhost.club, where you can get access to my private community and my course, is down in the description below. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.